Well, I think let's start there. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Alongside me today, so my name's James Allsworth. I'm from Alamy, as the t-shirt may have given away. I'm the head of content for Alamy. My role is responsible for all of the images onto the platform and the support we have with our photographers and our agencies. And we've got a really interesting panel with us today. One of them, the camera's not working, so you have to bear with us, but you'll be able to hear him. But I just wanted to introduce everyone first. So, we have Christina Vaughan, who runs the Cultura Creative agency. We've worked with Christina for a very long time. They really, as part of their mission, celebrate diversity. And I know Christina's got some great images to show us in just a second, and we'll give some background on the way they work and some of her history as well. We've got Deshawn Brown, who is on the call, but unfortunately the camera's not working. Co-founder of Pockstock, who first got my attention a few years back talking about their diversity lens and their whole work around inclusive imagery. And they've got a great collection and do some great things in this field. And we've got Tiffany Thompson, who's a great photographer, designer, winner of the PA Media Empower Her competition last year, who's also going to talk a bit about her journey and the work she does from the States, based in Baltimore. So that's it on the very brief intros. I'm going to immediately hand over to Christina, who will hopefully be able to share her screen. If there are any technical issues, please bear with us. We're in all areas we're experiencing a combination of bad rainfall in the UK, potential hurricanes in the US, but we're fingers crossed everything stays live and working. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Christina. Any questions you've got as we go along, whether there be time at the end, but you can submit them and we'll pick them up for discussion later. But over to you, Christina.
Hello, everybody. Hi, James. Thank you so much for, first of all, for inviting us along, but also to hosting this session. I think we've all seen, our world changing a lot, and a lot of you, whether you're photographers or clients or buyers of images, are really, trying to work out what are the things that are really going to count today in imagery and in the future. So Cultura is actually a fairly recent venture of mine, but actually I've been working in the stock licensing industry for over 30 years, and in that time we've seen a lot of changes in trends, a lot of change in the sort of content that clients are wanting to buy. But I think what's been a very, very clear trend for more than a decade now is the need for authenticity and the need to represent and show the world that we're working in. So Cultura is really, really about celebrating the diversity in our modern world. And diversity is not I think often the word suggests that we're separating things. So I quite like to focus on the inclusiveness, because in a world that has a diversification of thought and a diversification of imagery, I think we all succeed. So what we've been trying to do at Cultura, really over this last year, we've just actually signed with Alamy very, very recently. And when we spoke, it's like, what are clients wanting today? And some of it is what they see, but also what's behind the lens. Because what behind the lens really gives an opportunity for people to think about the truthful storytelling, about the way that the creator, the photographer, can really, really have a voice and have that his or her voice amplified. So for us working with Alamy, it's really, really important that our collection represents what we believe is what we're seeing in the world today. So our images really are set out to capture those really complex human relationships. The beauty, for example, of real body shapes and sizes, embracing the whole of the LGBTQ spectrum, and also very, very important, I think one of the things that people often forget about, that one of the most underrepresented, but actually one of the largest minority groups, are people who live with disability. So what we want to show, whether it's people's genders, where it's their religious or their sexual background, everybody has a vibrant part to play in this narrative, and that's what we want to do in our content and how we celebrate the world around us. So Cultura, a very new collection. We represent, the collection's about 30,000 strong. We have just about 80 photographers and videographers working with us. And but we as a team, the team behind Cultura, bring many years of experience in commercial imagery. We've tried to draw on the experience of our clients directly here in the UK where we're based, but also our global image partners. So we've been selling content across the whole spectrum. So whether that is in USA or Canada or Brazil, China, Japan, all those markets that are well known for content, but we've also tried to make sure our narrative carries across in other countries that maybe haven't been licensed in as much content. So we see the growth of markets like India, the growth of markets in the Middle East, growth markets in Southern Europe, across all the Americas, and what they're all asking for are to see images that really represent and reflect who they are and their clients. And so what we've tried to do with this collection is really celebrate everything that we see around us. So I thought to begin with, it might just be worth you talking to you or showing you a little bit about some of the photographers we represent, because again, looking at diversity behind the lens, what we've tried to do is give a voice and a platform for photographers who may not have traditionally shot stock photography before, may not have had an audience of the sort of users of stock imagery. So I'm just starting. I'll show you a few images from one of our wonderful female photographers, Elle Bramble. She's based in London in the UK, and I think her view of inclusive beauty really represents the new world that we are seeing today. So we cover with her the LGBTQ market. We cover women, different portrayals of women, and also a question of what beauty looks like today, because when I first started shooting 30 years ago, there was a very stereotypical type of beauty, and we know that has changed. And whether that's from brands like Dove, who are really showing the different landscape of beauty, or whether it is just the rise of so many individual entrepreneurs who can sell their products through Instagram or TikTok, and we know that there's a much wider market than we're used to. So Elle's collection, as you'll see, and I think a lot of these pictures speak for themselves, we're capturing the realness of beauty. So whether somebody has freckles, whether somebody is plus size, whether somebody has just got a different shape or feel to them. What does strength look like in women now? So, is it this female athlete who, is perhaps bigger than one might have used to have seen in stock? We just want to cover all those, and also just bring about the realness. So sizes, people have become bigger sizes, and so we just want to make sure everybody feels included in our work. And one of the missions of Cultura is really for people to feel empowered. So we hope our content has a real strength to it, and that women in particular, we show them as feeling as very strong role models. And I think as the world changes, and we see a lot more with generative AI, for example, it's really important that content we're producing for traditional photography really also is able to address the biases that we have started to see in generative AI. We're looking at real skin there. So rarely these days does a client want anything that is overproduced, overpolished. So we'll show people with real skin conditions and show the beauty of real skin, and not be afraid to show it how it is, to tell the truth in our imagery, and not to overproduce things. So a lot of our content is just not retouched, which is a big contrast to what we were doing in beauty not so long ago. We're looking at, you know, teeth, hair, moving away from what people have seen as stereotypical beauty in the past. And I mean, this lovely lady, just fabulous. Looking at age is a diversity. You know, the market for over 55, over 60-year-olds, and also not only for us is it important that we show this in the photography, but our models really feel that we are giving them confidence and really making them feel happy about their, you know, their bodies that they've lived in for the last 5 decades, and being able to celebrate their shapes and sizes. So our focus this collection is very much women of colour, but we are covering all sorts of diversity, whether it's different genders, different say body size, age. They all represent this world that is outside what one used to know as a traditional stock world. And then I focused on and showing a different photographer. Gu is based in Manchester in the north of England, and he works on a lot of work with us on lifestyle and business. And again, just showing a different perspective of how stock has changed, and again, looking at those really authentic models and scenes. And one of the things that we really take pride in is that we do go into a lot of people's homes and work with them in their homes. So we've got real settings, they're really authentic. People are much more comfortable when they're in their own homes. We're showing, again, different interactions, different relationships. We're trying to address bias, for example, of people having a stereotypical image of what a Muslim woman might look like. And here it's celebrating all those parts of friendship and of family, of community, and perhaps the background is, or the ethnicity is actually less important than the relationships, and again celebrating our modern world. So Gu is fantastic to go into these houses. You know, a lot of our photographers are very good at just finding those real interactions. A lot of what we're showing here is the UK market, and again the UK, perhaps US and Canada, perhaps have a different requirement of diversity or understanding of diversity than maybe some of the markets where maybe historically there is a different blend of ethnicities and migration, etc. But what Cultura is about is showing and celebrating all those different people who make up our world today. And as you can see, we're going in working with real people in real homes, and I think just capturing those true relationships. And for us, what's been really important as well is making sure that everybody in our ecosystem is rewarded. So for us, we want to make sure that our models are celebrated, or the people on our crew, whether it's our editors, our production assistants, our makeup assistants, are all reflected. This image and this set, again, what we when we talk about our inclusive world and celebrating the inclusive world, it is showing people who may live with different disabilities, but again celebrating that life rather than it being just people put on the edge. We want this to be about the relationship, about the interaction, and again with disabilities, not all disabilities are visible, not all disabilities are obvious, and we wanted to really make sure we were doing this properly. It's such an important often overlooked sector, and so we took training. All our team attended a training session to understand how to genuinely capture disability in our modern world. and you know, looking at things that often were quite subtle. So I think in the past people have tried to portray disability by, let's put a wheelchair into that, but I think that sense, and particularly people who live with disability, of frustration that they're always portrayed as just a person in a hospital chair, not even a you know, a wheelchair that would be the sort that they live with on a day-to-day basis. And as you can see, again, just really celebrating those moments of family, of life, of relations, the emotional connectivity, the emotional interaction. These are the things that people want to see. And for us also, culture and food, you can probably tell we like our food at Cultura, so we ask people to cook what would be a normal meal at home, and we try to capture that. So there's a real authenticity and a move away from that picture of the, you know, early naughty stock where you'd have a woman just with a lettuce leaf. We're doing real people, real food, real relationships, and real emotions, and keeping it modern, playing games that people play today, not you know, not just the sort of nostalgic images of the past. So again, little sample of some of our the images in our collection that we feel are not only demanded by the market, but also we're having successes in licensing them, because our clients are saying to them, you know, they feel that there is a truthfulness in our collection. And I think it really is important for any photographer out there, our client, after, you know, the many challenging years of the pandemics, that people want an honesty in their imagery, but they also, everybody's seeking reflection of real life, true life, and reflections of beauty. And finally, I just of the photographers were shown. This is a collection from Alamy MacDonald. He's a photographer we work with in collaboration with a project that we did with Fujifilm, who've also been a very big supporter of diversity and inclusivity in imaging. And Amin's London-based, really focuses on youth culture, and again, I think really positive images of the youth and the people he sees around him today. I think, you know, my experience stock, people have just always wanted that emotional connectivity, that authenticity. And this, for example, is one of our best-selling images shot in London, of what people, you know, see around them today and what they want to see, and representation. I also work on the board of a football club. I was about to say a Premier League football club, but unfortunately we got relegated this year. But a big thing for us at football, soccer level, is women in football and women in sports, and it's really important that girls can feel that the sport is for them. In the UK, it was banned to play professionally right until 1971. So we've got this new generation of girls and women entering the sport. So we're trying to show a lot of images, again, of areas that perhaps weren't accessible to everybody before, and representing them. And I guess Amin's got his feel, slightly got a nice sort of fashion and editorial feel, which is again what our clients are telling us that they want to see. And that's it from Cultura. We've got plenty more that you can find on the Alamy website, and we are shooting all the time. We're also shooting video, but I guess, if you know, what I want to sum up for what we think is really important is to celebrate this world, and it not to be a world about separating people, but bringing people together, because I think there's opportunity and there's optimism and hope for all. And what we're trying to do with Cultura is really focus and push forward the positivity of a very diverse world. So I hope that gives you a feel of what we're doing.
Thanks very much, Christina. That's brilliant. It's a wonderful collection. You've picked a great curation of images there. We're delighted to have them on the Alamy site, and like you say, there's many more as well. So thanks for talking us through that. That brings us on nicely to the next section of this, where we want to have a discussion around the importance of diversity and inclusion with our panelists, and we can bring Tiffany and Deshawn in as well. I mean, the whole point of this webinar really was for us to highlight the importance of diversity, of inclusion, and focusing on the creative space for all creators. But I guess the first question I'd like to put to you as a panel is that, you know, it might sound obvious, but why is this important? You know, is it a changing sort of global culture, Western culture? What are your views on why this representation and inclusivity is important across media? Maybe you know, anyone can answer, but maybe if Tiffany or Deshawn want to introduce themselves to the group here and pick that one up first, and I can go to each of you for your views on that.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Tiffany. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. So thank you, Christina, for your presentation. The imagery is really, I really appreciate all the imagery that you showed. The importance of the diversity is just, it's key really. As creatives, I'm also a designer as well as a photographer. So ensuring that, you know, we're portraying actual communities how they actually are is very important. As content creators, we're visual storytellers, so we need to really hone in on the photojournalism aspect and ensure that we're really portraying people how they actually are, and really just dialing in. I think it's important as creatives that we focus on our tools, our wisdom, our experiences that we have, and just really dial in on that visually. And that really just comes through as far as stock photography. And those examples, Christina, were great. Just I felt the emotion, I felt the energy, everything through those realistic images.
Thank
you. Deshawn, can we get your view?
Absolutely, and I do apologize for my video not working. I will say the three of you look fantastic, so I think you have the aesthetics of the call covered. And I do promise that I am clean shaven. I wore my good jacket. I'm in front of my great background, so you'll just have to imagine.
I believe you. That's fine.
I think this is a question that not just folks in our space get asked about the importance of diversity. It feels like globally, this is a thing that enterprises, corporations, agencies, everyone is asking themselves this question. So I think that's progress. That's a good evolution to where we're coming from. And for me, not just, you know, POCSTOT, me being co-founder, chief relationship officer, we started POCSTOT, I would say not under the guise of being able to distribute content of people of color. It was, how can we be a part of an ecosystem and an apparatus that makes people be seen, heard, and valued? And we take that position from being consumers ourselves and digesters of marketing, advertising, and information. And we see the gaps in how people are trying to allegedly portray us and communicate with us in a way that they believe is authentic, but a way that we feel is deeply not authentic. And that does create friction. So I think we're all looking to build audiences, customers, clients, consumers. And I think we all, hopefully for the most part, understand that your relationship with your audience is going to be hopefully built on trust. And one of the pillars there is authenticity and relevancy. So unless your audience is one very specific group, it behooves you to do the work necessary to understand audiences and to communicate them in an effective way. And again, because the world is so diverse, it is now more mobile and global than ever. This is really important to the marketing process, to the creative process. You know, I think in our pre-call, Tiffany said some great things about insights and just broadening our perspective. I think the greatest creative and the great communications are empathetic. And I think that empathy comes with having a diverse set of hearts, minds, bodies, histories, experiences in those ideation and planning rooms. And then also to the work that Christina does on the execution side with building teams that are inclusive and representative and using models and the crew and all the support staff It's really a 360 effort, and I think that just one produces the best work, but it also, I think, has the best impact on consumers globally.
Great. Christina?
I mean, I think both Tiffany and Deshawn have sort of covered those main points, but from my perspective, and I think I share the perspective of many people, is this world is diverse. There's just no doubt about it. And actually, from a perspective of a woman from mixed heritage background, from the north of England, you know, we feel all these different layers of diversity, and we all have a voice. And I think the more voices that are empowered at every level, the better this world is on all levels. So I feel like, you know, my life, I've lived and breathed diversity, may not have been labeled as that, but throughout my life, just really celebrating the differences around us and also the opportunity to bring those together. But, you know, one thing for me, particularly in the stock photography industry, I started in this industry 30 years ago, and at leadership level in the industry, at management level, I very rarely saw people who looked like me. And then when you started actually looking at the content, even less so. And one of the things one of my nieces said to me is that she feels now, coming so many years after me, she has many role models around her. And when you see something, you can be that person. I think it's really, really important, that ability for people to see women in leadership roles, in managerial roles. And if you see that, that just makes you, it helps you feel that you can be that. Whereas when I grew up, it was very, very rare to see anybody around me, whether that was on the TV or on films or in newspapers or magazines, in leadership roles or in empowered roles. And I think the more you see it, the more it becomes the norm. And so equally, for people living with disability, for people from all the different diverse communities we work with, the more they see themselves, I think the better it is for them, but actually for the world as a whole. And finally, I just add why diversity is matter. You know, Alamy is a business. We're all in business together. If you have more consumers that you can sell to, then that is good business. And excluding any sections of that community actually means you make less money because you've got less people to sell to. So why not make sure that you've got the ability to reflect and to sell to people from every different part of the community?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think related to that, and I think you've each touched on it, and Deshawn mentioned about the 360 effort. So we spoke about the kind of representation of diverse and inclusive content in front of the camera, but how important is it for behind the camera as well? And that's not just the person pressing the shutter. That might, like you say, Christina, be the agency owner, the models, or, you know, the art director. Is there an element of there's still lots to catch up in that space as well, behind the scenes, behind the camera?
I would say absolutely. I've been president of our trade organisation and organised many industry conferences for our leadership, and I still think it's a very white male-dominated industry. So we need to change from the top, and that means encouraging people. It just doesn't happen overnight, but making people feel that this is a space where they're welcomed and where they can thrive and they can do very well. So I think that's really important. I think gender is a really, really big issue. I mean, we often work on full female crews, which is wonderful to see. And people think, oh, you know, this is, you know, 2024, the sexism is done with, and I think, but to give you an example, I went for lunch yesterday with a professional female football player, and she was talking to me about the misogyny in the sport still, that it actually put off a lot of women wanting to enter the game. And I think that is just such a terrible thing to think. Here we are in 2024 talking about sexism and sexual harassment and people not feeling comfortable in that environment. And I think that has to change. And it shocks me that we're having this conversation in 2024. And I think any person of colour who walks into the room where everybody is white, you automatically feel you're on the outside, and so many things have to change. And I think the only way that we will really see positive changes if we all make a commitment to actually live this, and that means helping people on the production set, because having a set that understands all the nuances really makes a huge difference to that content being really authentic and feeling right and looking right and having that emotional connectivity with the audience.
Great, yeah. Tiffany, what are your thoughts on that, being as you're a creator, designer, photographer, you've covered soccer, football, you've even come over to the UK, and that's typically a white male world. Just interested on your view on that whole kind of creator side of this business.
Yeah, of course. Yes, definitely in sports photography, my experience has been being the only female in the room, but also the only person of color in the room, and generally the youngest person in the room. So on all aspects, I feel like you're not as comfortable. You don't feel, as you fit in as well. And that's being behind the camera. I've noticed it as for the videographers, for the journalists, for the media as a whole, just covering the sports. It's just definitely a lack of diversity in that aspect. And I can definitely see that it's growing, at least here in the US, where there are more women. So anytime I see an all women's team or crew, it's definitely like throwing my support their way. But yeah, it's crazy that in this day and age, we're still the minority in these spaces, but a lot of times we're the majority on the sports teams. So just it's something that definitely needs to be taken into account and addressed across all aspects.
Great. Deshaun?
At Clockstock, with our custom works, they're all diverse and inclusive, and many times for our clients, it's their first all diverse and inclusive production, which I agree with Christina is both tragic, but also to Tiffany's point, it is a call for some sort of optimism that we're starting to get there. Late, but we're not too late. Just never say never. And I also agree with Christina that there's many times success is in the details. And to speak up on behalf of some of my agency partners, I used to work with an agency. It's very difficult to get campaigns to the point that you're ready for production. There's a lot of details, and the in-house creative team and marketing team, they may not have covered all the details, or the team isn't representative enough to match the target audience, that there's just so many things that gets missed. So if your crew is diverse and representative of the target audience, you're in a position to have the prop stylist, the set dresser, styling, casting. We've had so many things that were caught either in pre-production or literally on set, decisions that were made to say, hey, we know the plan was X, but looking at it, it doesn't feel authentic. Why? Because someone who has that experience is on set saying, no, this is not it. We should pivot. Some of these things can be corrected in post, but that's not fully authentic, and that's not the most efficient way to do production. So I would just say, just from a practicality perspective and making productions more efficient, that's really where the value is. I think the second tier is just giving people opportunities that they normally wouldn't have. Most of our production crew, it is either their first, second, or third time on a commercial set. And it's a space where they said, I never thought that I specifically would be doing this sort of work because I was a part of the in-group. And there's a second and third tier spend if you're a corporation or brand who is committing dollars to diversity, working with folks like Clockstock, Cultura, working with folks like Tiffany. You're realizing those dollars that you're committing to do diverse and equitable business, and you're also getting more informed and authentic product on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that leads us nicely into, I've got a kind of double question here, so bear with me. So Christina, I think you'll be first. I'll come to you first to answer this about we spoke about this before in our pre-meet around balancing the commercial potential with true authenticity, because there is a balance to be found there, because obviously, you know, this needs to be a revenue generating commercial aspect to the production and the creation of this content. But I'd also want to add to that, and this wouldn't be a panel in 2024 if we didn't mention AI. Okay, we have to mention AI at some point, and we've gone 37 minutes without doing it, which is great. But what are the challenges involved in maintaining integrity in producing authentic content when it comes to the advancement of AI tools? And I'm thinking specifically around tools that can, at the click of a button, change someone's ethnicity to look in a different way. So that's coming in more and more. There's pros and cons to that, I'm sure, but I'm really interested in all of your views on how you get that balance right in producing commercially viable work, but having the integrity of being authentic, and maybe even using AI there or do we completely avoid that? You know, let's be really interested in your thoughts on all of that, but I'll come to you first, Christina.
Well, I think there's two issues here. So the first one, perhaps I'll address, is about something I feel very, very strongly about, and that is using AI to change people's ethnicity or the color of the skin or the shape of their face. And the reason I have a real problem with this, separating out all the political, racial issues, is it's about rewarding the people that are in the images. And you know, it seems to me yet again that, well, I think first of all, a lot of people don't reward the model anyway. But if you are going to reward the model, and that it feels a little bit like blackface to me, to make somebody made up, and the reward is going to that Caucasian person. So I think there's a real issue there. But secondly, you know, I think to pigeonhole diversity just about being the color of one's skin, which I think a lot of these AI apps are doing, again, I think that shows a complete lack of understanding about diversity, because diversity is not only how we look, but it's also about where we come from, where we're going, our attitudes, our personalities, our characteristics, all of which people say, well, it's an image, so you can't do, you know, you can't, but you can. If you're a good photographer, you can capture that whole culture of a person, whether it be the way that they, what they eat, the way that they cook, their environment, all these things speak to the culture. So I think it's really, really important to do that and to have that level of authenticity, because I think if we put diversity down just to the color of one's skin, then we just miss out on a myriad of wonderful positivities about the different aspects of our world. So that's, I hope, answering the AI issue. I am actually, I'm not an enemy of AI. I think there's so many fantastic tools within AI, but I think AI specifically for generating, say you have one campaign, say you're a German brand and you market to the Turkish East European market, and you market to the American market, and you market to the West European market, and you say, oh, this is great, I can get one model and I can make them look Turkish, I can make them look Middle Eastern, I can make them look Indian, I can make them look African American. This sounds like a great tool. I think there are so many levels of where that is so fundamentally wrong. And I think if a brand wanted to market to me and say, actually, we're saving money on our marketing by doing this, it would be the biggest turnoff for me. And I think I speak for many, many people from all backgrounds and all diversities who would have issue with that. So I think from a brand perspective, it's just wrong, simple as that. And then coming back to when people are looking for authenticities and emotional connections and all the other things that premium photography does, then you're just not going to get that. But using AI tools to help generate ideas, even generative AI to create an idea that you're struggling to articulate oneself. no issue with, but I do think specifically on trying to make one face look like every different nationality is fundamentally wrong, and it's not authentic, and it's not good business. People will not buy it, and the consumer will not find that acceptable.
Sure. Tiffany, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, touching on the AI part, I love tech. I love the new things that are, the advancements that are coming out. But I feel like it is in the creative space going a little too far. It really ends up lacking the authenticity and the realness behind the imagery. So even when you see something that's AI generated, you can definitely pick up on certain aspects that, give it away. It lacks the human aspect throughout. So specifically being a photographer, I've come across like these apps and everything where it's like, make your free headshot, make your free, all those things. And then creatives are losing jobs or opportunities because this AI is able to generate these quick, kind of quick fixes for things like that, where people don't need to then pay or set aside, a budget for photography or videography. You can kind of generate it through the technology itself. So that definitely makes it tough for us as creatives. And then another challenge I think that I've come across is when you're sought out by brands or partners and they love your style, that's why they selected you. But then, maybe for their marketing campaigns, they want you to dial down your creative style or, tone it down a little bit. And then it really has you think as a creative, who you want to align yourself with, and the end work that you want to come out with.
Sure. Deshawn?
So just when we're getting to a point where I think we're globally acknowledging that there needs to be more representation, diversity, inclusion, and a call for more authentic human marketing and advertising, now we have AI. So it's obviously counter to that. I would just say briefly, I think we just individually have to hold ourselves accountable. I think there's going to be a lot of people and brands and agencies and corporations who are going to start to tell themselves. So the folks who on one hand talk about authenticity and accuracy and relevancy, and then you're showing me ads that are clearly AI generated and not representative, right? So I think this is a very human thing. We are good at ideating, coming up with technologies, and then society has to then reverse engineer to figure it out. How does it really fit within our ethos and integrity? So everyone buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride. But I think it's really about you, if you're a freelancer, independent creative, what's the hierarchy of your values and follow that. If you're a brand and it is all about the bottom line and its efficiency, you just have to save money. I get it. But just be very careful about disconnected messaging when you're speaking to audiences one way and you're marketing and advertising to them another way. I know Cultura and Podstock are both trying to help companies in terms of data and just being more responsible and representative. But I just think this comes down to individual choice. And again, we're going to see who's really walking the walk and talking the talk. And folks have already been caught out there and called out. And again, we'll see what the reaction to that is. Are they going to do better, be better, or are they just going to continue to hopefully try to cut corners? Great.
No, thank you. It's really interesting and all make really equally great points. I want to move the conversation on slightly now. So I just wanted to call out that we are recording this. Someone's asked a question in the question chat around will there be a recording? Yes, there will. There are a couple of other questions coming through which we'll just push towards the end of the call in the next 15-20 minutes or so. But I wanted to hand over specifically to Tiffany and Deshawn, and maybe you can just give us a bit of an insight into your own careers up to this point. So obviously, Tiffany, you're working more on the individual side as a designer and photographer, and Deshawn, your journey up to now and what's been happening with Podstock, but also maybe, just in general, where things are at, where you see yourself going. But also, I think it'd be great for our audience to hear some practical tips on how to break into this media market if they're on the fringes, or if they're thinking about going one particular direction. I think any practical tips, advice you can give to our audience, I think would be great. So I'll hand over to maybe Tiffany first, but if you want to just kind of throw it over to between you, that'd be great. And we can pick up some questions after that.
Sure. I think one of the biggest keys for breaking into any creative market would be versatility. Really, I understand honing in on, your specific niche or medium. That's definitely important. Something that you're passionate about, focusing on that. But also, I feel like it definitely makes you marketable to be able to say, oh, I can do photography, I can do videography, I can do, multiple things that really will help and aid with partnerships with your clients, with brands. When you're pitching yourself to them, it's definitely helpful to say, hey, I have this skill set. I would be interested in doing this, this, and this. And then going from there, it really kind of gives you an edge up in whatever that you may be interested in. And I kind of use myself as an example for that. That I specialize in sports photography and events photography, but I also do graphic design. And within that design realm is also web design, UI, UX design, publication design. So not limiting myself to one specific type and then bringing this all to possible brands and partnerships. That's definitely a big thing that I've tried to hone in on and kind of further my skills in that aspect. And then it kind of brings me to my current career path. Right now, I'm doing a lot of freelance work with local organizations and nonprofits, focusing in on things that really are important to me in making a change in the community. So different partnerships with like Black women photographers. I'm part of several sports creative communities, the A2 Collective, just really focusing on brands and organizations that really are doing meaningful work. And focusing in on diversity, inclusion, all those things. And then future path, I would say I would love to get into curation, collaboration, and more community work. This was very refreshing and entertaining and exciting to be able to get to talk to everybody here, to learn what everyone's doing. So more webinars, more networking. I think I would really benefit and be able to, provide my expertise in that aspect. So that would be pretty much next steps for me.
Awesome. Deshaun?
A lot of my recommendations, I think Tiffany is almost like the poster child. She's hitting on a lot of good points. In terms of tips, I would say community integration to get insights and intelligence. Just assuming someone, one, has a desire and a passion to create and have been cultivating a skill set, I think those are great. Creating imagery in different spaces may not necessarily be the exact perfect fit for stock. So a good path would be to reach out to PopStock, reach out to Cultura, DM Deshaun, DM Christina, DM Tiffany to just ask questions. PopStock, we love that. I think the thing that we do most is actually talk to creators around the world, and it's not necessarily just, hey, give us your content so we can distribute it. That's kind of the end goal, to help creators generate revenue, but it really is relationships. And I think we exist to be able to give them insights as to, here's what we've seen that has worked for creators, here's what we've seen that hasn't worked for creators. And I would assume that all of us on the call would be willing, when we have the time and resource, learners have really helped. And I would just say relationships. Christina and I were on a panel at DMLA last year and forged a relationship. And I think every time we talk, I learn a lot, because she is such a industry beacon and pillar. And again, those relationships are going to help you. I don't care how talented you are. You will not figure this out on your own. And we do meet some really talented creators who think that just their ability to project a subject is kind of the end all be all, and that's not the case. And I would also look at the corporate enterprise brand agency side. Many of those folks sponsor creator events. that will help you meet and rub elbows with those folks so you can get a little bit of insight as to how does marketing campaign works from an agency perspective, how do campaigns work? And it just gives you all that behind the scenes insights that I think are going to inform you with being a better creator. To kind of do with Tiffany, I'm going to steal from you, Tiffany. So to project this to my own career, I started out working in business and technology for a large corporation. Wanted to pivot to something that was a little more agile and creative, so that brought me to advertising. But before jumping to advertising, I just reached out to a bunch of folks to say, hey, you work in this space. What is it like? What do you get out of it? What do you put into it? That helped me, one, make an informed decision to make a career move, but also prepared me for what I was getting into. And there was a sort of, hey, I need to also give back. So as people help and shape me into this community, I need to do the same thing with people who are looking to break into advertising. It's, again, I kind of explained the transition from working in advertising to PocSoc. It just started with, I want to know a space. I'm just going to reach out to people to get a bunch of insights and intelligence. The future for me is more calls like this. I think Christina hit on something earlier. I would love to work on more sets where it's a woman who's directing and is assistant director. I would love to walk into more creative rooms where there are people of varying disabilities on the client and agency side. I just want to see more representation across the board. My career would be working to do all that we can to ensure that we get to a point where it's not a surprise that we walk into rooms that are different, that we walk into sets that are multicultural, that are bilingual, that are multi-ethnic, to where it's just normal. It's just the way it's replicating the world. That's how the world is. Let's be a representation of that.
Great. Thank you for that. Really interesting. I guess a question I've got just for each of you, if you had a magic wand and one wish or one change you could make to the creative industry right now, what would it be? I mean, from the Alamy's point of view, we're seeing more and more truly authentic content coming on board. It may be that it's a kind of reaction to generative AI, that there's suddenly more real that coming through, and my wish would be to see that carry on increasing, and but keep that authenticity, keep that integrity. But I wonder if there's one big thing you could change right now, what would that be? That's to all three of you, so sorry to put you on the spot, but
I'll jump in there, James, and say, with the wisdom of age here, that I don't believe in these one big things. I think life and meaningful change is about a lot of little things, pushing little things all the time, those tiny little successes we have on a day by day, because I think often people are overwhelmed by the idea of one big thing because it feels so big and unachievable. But if we do little things every day, maybe commission a runner who comes from a diverse background, maybe just check that the space you're looking at as a rental has accessibility to people living with disabilities. All those little things actually make the whole. And I've felt in my career over the last 35 years, those big things rarely get done, but if you do the little things every day, they start really, really adding up, and that's when you start really seeing real change and meaningful changes, because you're not scaring the pants out of people who, might feel that they're being pushed out or edged out. But little changes every day, and having the patience to see those little changes through.
sure.
I would say
Go ahead.
I would say, somewhat aligned with Christina, my thing isn't going to be a big transformational thing that changes everything overnight. But a thing that I see consistently that is a miss that would be of immediate value and impact is to really humanize the strategy around producing content. And I'm going to mostly say this is on the marketing and advertising side. Many times we see briefs to develop content or source content, and it'll be, we are looking for multicultural person S. I have no idea what that is. Or we're looking for an Asian person and a Black person. And my pushback to those is, could we make these people, like, could we make them people and humans who have a background? So to me, we cannot get culturally relevant and accurate until we start to humanize the subjects that we're looking to create. So we're starting to do workshops to kind of say up front, the product is only going to be as good as the strategy. And if we have teams that are, I think, not just empathetic, but are following through on the empathy to say, hey, what are we sharing to studios and stock companies and creators? Is this human enough? Are we looking to connect with humans? If so, then is the request humanized? So I think that's just one achievable thing that folks could literally do right now. If anyone on this call has a brief that they're looking to issue at some point this week, take a step back, breathe, and really think about the humans behind what you're looking to capture.
Yeah, I love that. Tiff?
Yeah, mine kind of piggybacks off of that, but focusing on the authenticity and storytelling. So starting with, you know, the team as a whole that's creating this marketing message, or, you know, whatever it may be, starting with that team, making sure they are in direct connection with the end audience, and then making sure that, you know, this messaging is clear. And this can be, you know, in social media, with social media being so big nowadays, it's like everyone's adapting and going with these trends, but just really honing back in on that authenticity of who we are, what we're communicating. And then I think bit by bit, it will begin to change the messaging as a whole.
Awesome, great. Okay, so we're getting close to time here. I just want to begin to wrap up. There's one question that came through from Michael, who's on the call. I thought it was a great question. And it might be more leaning towards your specialties, Tiff, in the sort of editorial space, but he's asking here if we could just very briefly talk about the depiction of diversity and inclusivity in unstaged images. So maybe more on the editorial side, maybe street photography or wherever it might be. So he's asking here, how would you ensure that representation in the context of it being unstaged is valid, consensual, and positive? Anybody got a view on that? I think yeah, just thinking of it from an Alamy point of view, I think what we would say in response to that, just while I give you a minute or two to think of an answer, you guys, is that I would always say that if, for example, you are shooting editorial, if you are shooting street photography or a sporting event, but I'm predominantly thinking about just general, might be travel, might be street photography. I would say, you know, always be upfront about that. You know, it's not about hiding in the bushes and doing something sneaky. I think some of the best street photographers are very, very open that I'm a photographer, I want to take your photo, have conversations with people. It comes into that thing Deshaun was saying about humanizing and having that connection. I think that's really important. I think in order to get things consensual, at least, it isn't about being a million miles away with a big zoom lens. I think it's about immersing yourself in a community, in a culture, but being very open about what you want to do and why you're there. But yeah, interested in if any of you on the panel have a view on that too.
In the case, I try to make sure I'm asking. A lot of times when you're moving around an event, you're trying to get people in the moment to capture that authenticity. But I usually try and get a thumbs up or something, make some kind of connection with them before, so it's not just like, you know, where they're feeling uncomfortable or like, is my face going to be on this campaign or the front page of this? So, you know, having that kind of like an initial quick relationship with whoever you're capturing. It is a little tougher in street and travel photography, but I try to not really, I guess, zoom in on people and like really hone in on their face and things like that. I try to be more inconspicuous and like from a distance in the atmosphere and not, you know, kind of invade their privacy or space.
More from a travel perspective, we have a couple of creators who they have access to time and resources to do a bit of research beforehand, but also kind of some proofing after the fact. So if they're traveling to a geography they're not really fluent in, it's just getting a bit of information to kind of go in thinking and knowing what possibly could be authentic. You're not always going to be 100% be able to prove that, but I think just having some sort of information and guidance as to where to go, what sort of events could help, so you're not trapped in tourist traps that are obviously distant from the local reality. And then being able to tap into someone after the fact. So before you post or distribute anything, say, hey, I traveled to this place. I did a bit of research, but I just want to make sure, get some additional eyes on it. I know everyone isn't afforded that, but I thought that was an interesting approach when you have the time and the resource to do those things, the pre-work and then the post-work, just to get some additional points of view on the subject. Said, am I being overly stereotypical? Am I thinking I'm capturing something that's authentic in someone who is a native? Say, no, don't do that. Don't push that.
Sure. And just time for one more question related to that from Leah. How can we encourage people from diverse communities to step out in the creative world?
I think it starts with actually being able to see that. So, collections like Cultura on Alamy, people seeing that sort of content is a first step. But I do think it actually takes some proactivity. We've been approached by many agencies who say, oh, we love your collection, we want a piece of that. Can you do this for us? And that is about as far as it goes. They don't want to make the investment in the photographers in the community, in the work. And I think many people from diverse backgrounds are really put off by feeling that they need to be the poster girl or poster person for diversity. And actually the exchange is always they have to give it for free, because there's one point you want to see more content out there, you want it to be amplified, but so many people, maybe on the client side, or even I would say particularly with large stock agencies, just want to get it for free. And I think it has to be a genuine investment in that photographer and the crew. And coming back to the point we made earlier about the diverse crews, it isn't just the photographer that makes the image. It is all those involved in the whole process, from the art director to the producer, the editor, and they need remunerating. I say to a lot of agencies, they can't afford this to free. Yeah, it's nice seeing a picture, but that doesn't pay the rent. And it's really, really important that people are rewarded for their work and not expected to be the person that holds the flag up for diversity, and that their payment is just feeling good about seeing, the image being used. So it's really an understanding that everybody has to be remunerated. And I think we see it too often that people feel that they're doing a favor by giving this exposure and this visibility, and that's just simply not good enough. So if we want to see more content and we want more photographers and creatives entering the sector on the creative side, they need to feel that there is work for them, that they're going to be paid, rewarded, recognized, and they're not just going to be expected to be waving the flag of diversity for all those that come behind them. So that would be my starting point. And then there's so many other areas. I won't hog the screen on this, but I think just an understanding from that world out there that actually people need remunerating for their work.
Sure. Tiffany, does you have anything to add to that?
I think access to all these things, like we're knowing that there's companies like Cultura and PacStock that are available, that there are people backing, that these exist, and then really spreading that word so that everyone is aware. Then more companies, more people will want to invest, more people will want to get involved, more creators will want to produce and kind of partner with companies like you guys to really have that be the new norm. I think that would be a great starting point, as really everybody being aware of these companies as a whole.
Agreed. Calls like this, webinars like this, these communities, helping them, making sure that they know that there is a need and a value. And I agree with Christina, investment, and I will put an emphasis on equitable investment in creators.
Great. Okay. No, thank you for your insight. I find that really fascinating. We've gone slightly over time, so it's kind of time for us to wrap up, unfortunately. But I just want to say thank you for joining us, Christina, Tiffany, Deshawn. It's been really interesting. It's the end of this webinar, but it feels like the start of a bigger conversation. We're at Alamy, we're hoping to have this kind of format regularly. If anyone who's in the attendees list or any of our panelists want to invite Alamy along to something similar, or we can get you back, that would be great. We're always open to that and really appreciate your time. I think in terms of what's next, I think as I said, we'd like to do more of this, but we want to really make sure that the collection that we hold on Alamy at least is part of this and part of this conversation, and we have authentic images with integrity that are serving the right purpose. So we're really happy to keep learning. It is a learning journey as we go along, and things change so rapidly in this industry, in the creative world. I think it's really important to have these open conversations. So I'd just like to give the opportunity for anybody else in the panel, any kind of closing comments. Do you want to push your website? How can people get in touch with you? Feel free. I'll hand over to Tiffany first, but we can go along the group.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity for sharing the panel with you guys. It was definitely a great conversation. I would love to continue talking about things like this with you all. I guess you guys can follow me on my website, ohheytiff.com, and then I'm on social as _or at _ ohheytiff, and that's all social. And then LinkedIn, if you search ohheytiff, I'll pop up. But thank you again.
Thanks, Tiffany. Christina?
Yeah, just thank you everybody for taking the time out to listen to this. I know a lot of people who may consider themselves not from a diverse background are sometimes intimidated by this, but we all, whoever we are, come from different levels of diversity, and I think the important thing to think that we're all in here to be inclusive together. So I think that really is important, and those of you who may not consider you've come from a diverse background, thank you for joining us, because we know one of the things I've learned, people have said to me, I'm really afraid about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. The most important thing is to do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you can do better. So don't be afraid to be an ally, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think the intention is good and it's there. We're all here, in a welcoming community. You can find me, Christina Vaughan, at culturacreative.com. The Instagram is the same. We're a little bit behind on our LinkedIn and other social. We've been very busy just doing rather than promoting ourselves. But I think we're easy to find, and we're on Alamy, and really, really excited about this new partnership with Alamy. It really is a fantastic platform, and I think for photographers from all backgrounds, you really can't find a better platform to find your voice and find your authentic true self. So you can come and look at us there, but also on our direct platform.
Thank you, Christina. That's great. And finally, just to Deshawn.
Deshawn Brown, you can find me on LinkedIn. DM me anytime, questions, ideas. We love ideas. I love ideas. We at PocSoc love ideas. And you can follow PocSoc, PocSoc.com. We are heavily active on both LinkedIn and Instagram. I will say just thank you to the audience, for the folks who took the time to hopefully learn a thing. And I think the homework is let's get to work. Thank you to Tiffany, Christina, James, Cultura, Alamy. You are doing the work. I want to get a space for where it's not complaining about how the world is. Let's just hunker down and forge community and do the work necessary to create the world that we want. So thank you all.
Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, thanks again, everyone. Thanks to the panel, thanks to the audience, and hopefully we'll see you on something similar soon. But for now, it's goodbye, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.